And in the theme of the moment and the spirit of the moment, our CIO, Campus Chief Information Officer, first female Chief Information Officer of the Global Campus, Mrs. Tracy Edwards Greaves. So it is a pleasure. And of course, everyone listening on social media, it is great to have you. I think I saw Dr. Cheryl Slowly was here earlier on, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the International School for Development Justice. I'm deeply honored to bring these remarks at this auspicious event in celebration of International Women's Day 2026. I bring you greetings from the Office of the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, the senior management team, staff and students of our great global campus. I wish to commend the staff of the Women and Development Unit for hosting this excellent panel discussion. I'm happy to be here to share in this event with you this evening. First, I extend special welcome, as I've already done, to the distinguished panel, Dr. Luce Longsworth, Dr. Emily Digford, Mrs. Karen Ford Warner, and Mrs. Tracy Edwards Greaves. I am certain that the audience is looking forward to what you will share with us this evening. I wish to also recognize in our midst members of my senior management team who are here. To all our students, colleagues, friends, welcome to you, the general public as well. The month of March is celebrated throughout the world as Women's History Month. And I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate all the women who are listening to me now. We are deeply grateful for your contribution to the development of our institutions. Your unwavering dedication to your families and society is remarkable. The theme for this evening's panel discussion, Give to Gain through Education and Digital Access, is not only a call to be more generous or to provide more resources and opportunities for women. It is a call for women to recognize that there is a need for transformation and liberation. And for such transformation to take place, there must be action. There must be a movement. There must be advocates who will be the voice of the voiceless and agents of change. Therefore, you are all called to make a meaningful contribution towards a brighter future. Speaking of a brighter future, the University of the West Indies has, since 1948, been a key contributor to the development of our region. It has served as a driving force behind regional progress, continuing to advance learning, to create knowledge, and to foster innovation. Through research in sustainability and technology, it has strengthened Caribbean economies, promoted regional integration, and over its 78-year history, has evolved into an institution ranked among the top 3.6% of universities worldwide. At the UE Global Campus, to say we are excited to be part of this mission is an extravagant understatement, if you will allow this oxymoron. Our aim of leaving no one behind speaks to our commitment to the underserved, enabling them to achieve their full potential and make a positive impact on society. With 42 site locations, the Global Campus bridges the gap between traditional campus offerings and the needs of working professionals and rural communities. The design of our programs, offering multiple entry points, allows greater access to the University of the West Indies through a range of academic options. The phrase breaking down the walls is a defining expression for the campus and the title of a book documenting its evolution. It clearly reflects our role in expanding access to university education. This commitment to expanding access extends into the area of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is a commitment to continuously acquiring new knowledge and skills. At the UWI Global Campus, we are committed to fostering the interests of adult learners and the lifelong learning community. In 2026, we continue on this mission to break down barriers to education on a global scale, while remaining rooted in the Caribbean and playing our part in helping to achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. One practical example of how the UWI Global Campus continues to contribute to the development of our region is through the Advanced Level Digital Skills Certification in the OECS. The University of the West Indies Global Campus has been contracted by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, to contribute the delivery, to coordinate the delivery of Advanced Level Digital Skills Certification as part of the wider Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. The CARD-TP, the acronym, aims to enhance workforce readiness and foster inclusive economic growth across participating OECS member states. The Global Campus will focus on coordinating digital skills certification in specific areas to better equip individuals and businesses across the region for the jobs and economy of the future, and to spur innovation and productivity growth. This is exactly what we are speaking about here this evening. I turn your attention now to the theme for this evening's panel discussion: Give to Gain through Education and Digital Access. A very powerful and timely theme. Education and digital access, when brought together, have the ability to transform lives, uplift communities, and unlock opportunities that were once out of reach. We live in a world that often teaches us to hold tightly to what we have, whether it be possessions, status, success, or even knowledge. However, this theme, Give to Gain, encourages us to make the choice to serve, which is a higher form of success. The principle of giving to gain is a spiritual truth where generosity leads to spiritual and sometimes material blessings, often described as sowing and reaping. The theme, Give to Gain, reminds us that true progress is not achieved by operating in silos or keeping our hands in our pockets, but by reaching out, by investing in others. It requires breaking down barriers and actively engaging with others. Rather than hoarding knowledge, it encourages us to give willingly and cheerfully. Education remains one of the most powerful tools for transformation. It equips individuals with the skills to think critically, act confidently, and contribute meaningfully to society. Activist and former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, once said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. For women and girls, especially, education builds confidence, strengthens voices, and opens doors to opportunities. I'm certain that for many of us, climbing the academic ladder has changed the trajectory of our lives, fostering personal growth and opening doors to opportunities that might otherwise have been unattainable, or might I say, unthinkable. According to Search, Whitaker, and Sladin, 2023, education is an essential tool that imparts knowledge to improve the lives of individuals and plays a significant role in molding the ethics and culture of society. It is therefore of paramount importance that those who influence the education agenda and have the power to make changes that will significantly impact those who access education in its broadest sense lead responsibly. Decision makers must consider interests of all key stakeholders, including those who access the various pathways to education, as well as the wider community. Fads and fashions may come and go in relation to educational delivery, but the core emphasis must always be to educate, improve, enrich, and equip learners with the tools they need for now and the future. Alongside education, another powerful tool that continues to transform lives is digital access. This is the ability to get online and use digital tools effectively. While we are here today, utilizing technology to share knowledge with each other on this fundamental discussion, the truth is that not everyone has equal access to these tools. My sisters and brothers, the digital divide is real, and many people still lack reliable internet, devices, or the skills needed to navigate the digital world. This gap creates inequality, limiting the potential of talented individuals simply because of where they live or what resources they have. According to the UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report, despite decades of educational progress and international commitments, 250 million children and youth remain out of school worldwide. As of 2024-2025, UNESCO reports that 2.6 billion people, 32% of the global population, remain offline, with the digital divide disproportionately affecting women, rural communities, and low-income countries. Key statistics indicate severe gender gaps in technology access, with 244 million fewer women than men using the internet worldwide. What does this tell us? What does this mean? This is an urgent call to action. It drives home our theme, give to gain. It challenges us to rethink our role, not just as beneficiaries of knowledge and technology, but as active contributors. It calls on educators to share more, leaders to invest more, and communities to support one another more intentionally, whether it is providing resources, mentorship, infrastructure, advocating for policies that prioritize inclusive education and digital equity, or simply offering a word of encouragement. Every act of giving strengthens the foundation for collective progress. Everyone may not be in the position to give bursaries and scholarships, but together, by combining efforts, you may be surprised at how much can be done. It could begin with providing a textbook, a new laptop, or safe space with internet access for young women. Whether you are an educator, business leader, community advocate, or student, your contribution matters. It starts with simple, intentional actions. The woman who gains skills today becomes a mentor tomorrow. The girl who is supported today becomes the innovator of the future. This is how transformation happens, not in isolation, but through collective effort. As we leave the digital space this evening and go into our workplaces, our communities, and our schools, let us commit to action. Let us not allow this theme to languish as mere words. Let it become a movement, one where giving is intentional, And together, we will gain stronger communities, more resilient economies, a more skilled workforce, and a generation better prepared to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Max Lucado, best-selling American author, once said that the people who make a difference are not the ones with the credentials, but the ones with the concern. This tells us that we ought to have a sense of responsibility as individuals, as communities, and as leaders. We must have that desire to bridge this gap. When we provide access to both education and digital tools, we are not just teaching people, we are giving them the power to change their own lives. We are opening doors to innovation, creativity, and economic growth. Let us work together to create a world where knowledge is accessible, opportunities are equal, and no one is left behind. Denzel Washington, American actor and director, says, at the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Yesterday, Wednesday, March 18th, the Global Campus presented our annual report to Campus Council, to the region and the world via UETV. In our report, we demonstrated the excellent work the Global Campus is doing among and for our people and our women in particular. We revealed through our various divisional and departmental reports our full participation in the project of relentlessly pursuing our mission of access as we ground ourselves with our sisters and our brothers. Our aim is to take us as far away as possible from the biggest constraint to our liberation as Black and other marginalized people in the region and the diaspora, and that is poverty. Walter Rodney, in his 1969 book, The Groundings with My Brothers, and forgive the archaic language at the time, but we know without a doubt that Walter Rodney also meant sisters. And he wrote, there is nothing with which poverty coincides so absolutely as with the color Black. Small or large population, hot or cold climates, rich or poor in natural resources, poverty cuts across all of these factors in order to find Black people and other minorities, and as the statistics show, women in particular. We are absolutely conscious, my sisters and brothers, that if the above is true for Black people and other marginalized ethnicities, it is even more so for sisters who often carry the burden of responsibility of our immediate and extended families. This is why I have not made a fuss, and I make no fuss about the preponderance of females over males in registration at the UE and the Global Campus. When our sisters are empowering themselves through education, I do not consider this a crisis. I welcome it, and the onus is on our brothers to step up. With these words, I wish to welcome all of you to this panel discussion and extend my best wishes to all. My utmost respect to Mrs. Colleen Robinson Hunt and the Women and Development Unit, as well as Mrs. Cecil Minot and the Consortium for Social Development and Research, under whose aegis WAND falls. Thank you, God bless you, and peace.
Thank you so much, Principal, as always, for your warm and thought-provoking welcome. You have definitely set the landscape for this evening, and we are so pleased that you were able to be here. And it was an extremely busy time at our campus, but we, welcome you to giving our welcome remarks. We thank you graciously. And I personally appreciate the continued support you give to WAND and this event. Before we begin with our presentations, I wanted to take this opportunity to give a brief overview of WAND and what we do for those who may not be aware, and provide additional context for tonight's event. So WAND, the Women and Development Unit, was established in August 1978. The work of the unit has been committed to supporting and promoting women's development through training, research, documentation, and community outreach. The unit joined the University of the West Indies, then the Open Campus in 2008, becoming a unit of the Consortium for Social Development and Research, CSDR. The WAND unit centers women and their families in Caribbean development by adapting an inclusive and intersectional approach, which looks at women's economic participation, women with disabilities, women's sexual identity, gender-based violence, and women and children. The unit also centers Caribbean development through online learning, technical partnerships, policy development, research, and advocacy. So that's a little bit of background of WAND. We have a page on the UE Global Campus website where you can read more of what we do. We also have an IG page, WAND_UWIGC, where we keep you up to date with developments of the unit, activities and information that are happening and affecting the region and internationally in relation to women and development. So one of this year's themes for International Women's Day is Give to Gain. Women are always giving. We give in our time, we give our finances, we give our care, our love, our attention, and the list goes on. Globally, gender equality and parity have a long way to go. As the UN's theme for International Women's Month this year was right, equality, and justice, all of which are still very much on the radar of gender and development work. There are plenty of statistics to show the gains women have made, but just as many to show the inequalities that still remain, especially in the parts of the world where diversity, equity, and inclusion frameworks are being dismantled, which will certainly affect women and ethnic groups more harshly. Professor Hermione Anthony Morton, in a public lecture titled Memory, Truth-Telling, and Inscribing Caribbean Women's Agency into Text, refers to the importance of truth-telling and oral histories, capturing our story for generations to come, and that academia should be more accepting of collecting data in this way and accepting it as a reliable and verifiable data collection method and methodology. Therefore, this evening, we have 4 exceptional leaders who are going to share their stories and experience with us of being female leaders, and hopefully by them giving us an insight into their work and their experiences, we will gain additional knowledge that will assist us in our personal and professional lives. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of all the presentations in our question and answer session. So please feel free to drop your questions and comments in the chat and we will respond to them at that appointed time. Please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off whilst the presenters are speaking. So I would like to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Emily G. Dick-Ford. She is an expert in sustainable financial management and sustainability reporting with over 30 years of experience and advanced qualifications in strategic financial management and corporate social responsibility and reporting. Dr. Dick-Ford has a PhD in accounting, specialising in corporate, social and environmental reporting from the University of Dundee, Scotland. She is a certified professional accountant with CPA Canada, having completed the Certified Management Accounting qualification in 2000. In 2014, Dr. Dick-Ford was assessed and granted fellowship status with CPA Canada. She earned an MPhil Finance from the University of Cambridge and a BSc Accounting First Class Honours from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. Dr. Dick-Ford has served as the Deputy Principal of the University of the West Indies Global Campus since 2021 and served as a Government Senator and Minister of Planning, Housing and Environment in the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago from 2007 to 2010. Dr. Dick-Ford is a scholarship winner with the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust, the Association of Commonwealth Universities, and the University of Dundee International Student Scholarship. She has a passion to advance responsible leadership and good governance for a just and fair society. Dr. Dick-Ford is married and the mother of 3 adult children. Over to you, Dr. Dick-Ford. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Let me share my screen. And if you would allow me to turn my camera off because I have to turn my head to another screen to read my script. And that way I can stay on time.
Absolutely,
So,
no problem.
Thank you very much. So I'm assuming you're seeing my screen. So So this is titled A Journey of Purpose, Faith, and Responsible Leadership, Career Reflections of a Female Leader. And I do hope that I have provided you with what you've asked. So a very pleasant good evening to everyone. Very pleasant good evening. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to share my career journey with you today. A journey which was shaped by my mother's love for her children, faith in God, values that my mother instilled in us, obedience, perseverance, education, service, and an unwavering commitment to people who often feel unseen, unheard, and left behind. I identify as a woman, a Caribbean professional, a mother, an academic, a public servant, and above all, as someone who gives God all the glory for every step of this journey. In terms of where I began my working life, this picture you're seeing is my mother and I when I graduated from the Cave Hill campus. You see her proud face there. So my working life began at the age of 18, not in a corner office, not in leadership, but as an accounts clerk at the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. I did not come from privilege. I am the sixth of 10 children raised by a single mother in a community that many would describe as marginalized and left behind. From an early age, I understood what it meant to stretch limited resources, to work hard, and to depend on faith when the odds seemed stacked against you. Those early experiences shaped my worldview. My mother's experiences and her intentional lessons to us helped to shape the values and work ethic that I hold even to this day. These values and lessons from my mother gave me empathy. They taught me resilience and a courageous heart that shows up at times and leave me surprised. My upbringing, first job, and Christian discipline instilled in me a lifelong commitment to ensuring that systems work for people, not against them. After working for 3 years, there's my mommy again. After working for 3 years and not the 1 year that my mom had planned, I pursued my bachelor's degree in accounting. And by God's grace and disciplined effort, I graduated with first-class honors, the only student in my cohort to do so. That achievement opened doors I never imagined. One of my mentors, who was a former lecturer and later a work colleague, Dr. Robertine Chatterton, saw an advertisement for the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust Scholarship and insisted that I should apply. At the same time, my husband, who was at the time my friend, also sent the same scholarship advertisement and also insisted that I should apply. I did, and I was awarded a Commonwealth scholarship to the University of Cambridge in England, where I completed a master's degree in finance. For a young woman from a small Caribbean community, Cambridge was not just an academic experience, it was a lesson in courage. I learned that excellence has no geography and that Caribbean women belong in the most rigorous academic and professional spaces in the world. I met many other Caribbean women there. Some are lifelong friends. And this picture gives you a little snapshot of us at Cambridge University. I returned home and joined the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus as a lecturer in accounting and finance, where I served for 17 years. During those years, I was not only building an academic career, I was also building a family. I gave birth to 3 children, 1 son and 2 daughters. Balancing marriage, motherhood, teaching, research, and the service was not easy. There were moments of exhaustion, doubt, and sacrifice, but I remained grounded in my faith and in my belief that women do not have to choose between excellence and family. We can, with support and grace, pursue both. While teaching, I also completed my PhD in accounting, with a focus on social and environmental reporting in the Caribbean. My thesis, a multi-level analysis of social and environmental reporting in the English Caribbean, reflected my enduring concern with accountability, sustainability, and justice, particularly in contexts where vulnerable communities often bear the greatest cost. Alongside my academic career, I pursued professional qualifications, completing my Certified Management Accountant designation with the Society of Management Accountants of Canada, fully funded by CMA Canada in the year 2000. This reinforced a principle I continue to live by. Leadership demands lifelong learning. No matter how accomplished we become, we must remain students, open to growth, correction, and new ways of thinking. This image that I left on the screen, to be a Christian, is to look at the world through the lens of the cross and thereby keep one's focus on human suffering and struggle. This is a quote that takes up one of the pages in the front of my PhD, because I used the neo-pragmatic, I would have to call it, the neo-pragmatic social theory of Cornel West to inform my PhD dissertation. This is the front of my PhD dissertation. So in 2007, my career took an unexpected turn. I was asked to serve in the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago by Mr. Patrick Manning, the Prime Minister at the time. First, as a government senator, as a government senator and a senior minister with responsibility for planning, housing, and the environment. This was a defining chapter in my life. The portfolio was complex, politically sensitive, and deeply impactful. It touched people's lives in the most fundamental ways, where they lived, how communities were developed, and how the environment was protected for future generations. My approach to leadership in government was guided by three principles: good governance, responsible stewardship of public resources, and a deliberate focus on the most vulnerable. I worked alongside the Prime Minister, Mr. Patrick Manning, and other cabinet ministers to bring order, transparency, and accountability to the agencies under my portfolio, always mindful that behind every policy decision are people, families, children, and communities. Mr. Manning always told us to fix the services provided by the ministries we lead so that the greatest number benefits. Today, I serve as the Deputy Principal, Campus Principal of the University of the West Indies Global Campus, formerly the Open Campus. And this picture is, I think it was my first day when I joined the Open Campus on September the 1st, 2010. This role is especially meaningful to me because it brings my journey full circle. At the Global Campus, we use digital technology to reach people where they are, delivering distance and online education to learners in rural areas, underserved communities, and those on the periphery of traditional systems, as well as working persons who need this mode of education. We offer not only bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, but we also provide continuing and professional education, including vocational and skills-based programs. In essence, we are saying to people, your location does not define your potential. Your circumstances do not limit your future. Education belongs to you. Faith, ethics, and leadership has marked the way I have seen myself progress through my career, whether in finance, academia, government, or educational leadership. One thing has remained constant: my Christian faith and ethics. They guide my decisions, they shape my leadership style. They remind me that leadership is not about power, but service. I believe deeply that we are called to lift as we climb, to speak for those without a voice, and to create systems that are just, inclusive, and humane. If I leave you with anything today, let it be this: your background does not disqualify you, it prepares you. Excellence opens doors, but character keeps them open. Faith and professionalism are not opposites, they are powerful partners. Leadership is most meaningful when it serves the most vulnerable. As women, especially Caribbean women, we belong in leadership spaces, not from a posture of entitlement, but because our perspectives, resilience, and compassion are essential for responsible leadership. So as I close, I say that from an accounts clerk at age of 18, to Cambridge and the University of Dundee, Minister of Government and now Deputy Campus Principal, this journey has never been linear, easy, nor accidental. It has been purposeful, it has been faith-driven, and it has always been about service. So I end by saying, to God be all the glory. And I want to thank the organizers for inviting me and for giving me an opportunity to share. And I look forward to any questions that persons may have. And I look forward especially to hearing the other panelists. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dickford. That was fantastic. Thank you so much indeed. There's so many things that I, was going around in my head as I was listening to you. You listed all the hats and identities that we as women wear. You talked about the resilience. You talked about the support mechanisms that you had as well that assisted you in, being able to get your scholarship and so on. What really stood out was about the excellence has no geography. I will coin that. I think that is amazing that, excellence just is just who you are. It's what you do. It doesn't matter where you go. You should be walking in the spirit of excellence. And, your closing comments around background not disqualifying you and it shaping you. And I think, what came to mind when you said that was the scripture about God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. That resonated deeply with me. So thank you so much for your presentation. And I'm sure there'll be questions at the end once we finish with the rest of the presentation. So thank you once again. Okay, so moving swiftly on to our second panelist, Mrs. Tracy Edwards-Greaves. She is the Campus Chief Information Officer. Mrs. Edwards-Greaves is an experienced technology professional with over 20 years in information systems, project management, and digital transformation. Her career has spanned the public sector and higher education, where she has provided project leadership, technical expertise, and support for major ICT initiatives that improved efficiency, expanded access to services, and enhanced learning opportunities. Mrs. Tracy Edwards-Greaves, has been working with the UE Global Campus since July 2014, first as a project manager under the Strengthening Distance in Education in the Caribbean, internally known as the SDEC project, where she provided project management support and coordinated delivery of ICT solutions. During the 2021 academic year, during the COVID-19 pandemic, she played a pivotal role in the implementation of digital learning solutions that address disparities in student access. As CIO and head of the Computing and Technology Services CATS division, she leads the ICT strategy, governance, and technical support for the global campus. Her portfolio includes managing key initiatives, safeguarding data security, and driving innovation to enhance the digital experience for staff and students across the campus. Tracy, over to you. You're muted.
Okay, let me start sharing my screen. Thank you so much, Colleen. Good night, everyone. I'm Tracy Edwards-Greaves, as introduced, the Global Campus CIO. And I'd like to thank, first of all, the Women and Development Unit and Mrs. Colleen Robinson-Hunt for this invitation tonight to be among my distinguished colleagues and to also acknowledge their work and their efforts in female empowerment. So tonight I'll speak to you about my personal journey, my access to education, introduction to IT, the role of mentorship and leadership in my life, as well as I'll pass on the baton to other women. Gift again, this theme. As I prepared for this presentation this evening, I had to think about exactly what it meant to me. So the theme for International Women's Day, Gift Again, it captures a truth that is often overlooked in conversations about success and leadership. Progress is rarely achieved alone. And when I reflect on my own personal journey, I recognize that it has been shaped by not a single defining achievement, but by a series of moments where women chose to invest their time, their knowledge, and their belief in me. And these acts of giving, they did not come with guarantees. It wasn't a quid pro quo arrangement, but they created opportunities that fundamentally altered the direction of my life. So at the beginning of my career, I actually never thought of going into IT, or in shaping the technology strategy of the campus, anything like that. My ambitions, they were modest and they were grounded in what I believe was realistic and attainable at the time. And to give context, my grandmother, she was the office manager of a firm called Phillips Electrical that was on Broadway in Trinidad. And she was the single mother of 3 girls. And they had their own home, they weren't poverty stricken, and they all went out, meaning her daughters, they all went on to have their own professional careers, So, and my mother herself, she was actually in office administration. She was a secretary at first at various firms, but her final job, she was she manned the switchboard at Nilamasi Motors. So what I believed was realistic, become a secretary, a role in office administration, that was actually a role that I associated with stability because, my grandmother, she had that steady income. She was able to raise her family. And I also associated it with respectability and security. So that aspiration was not a failure of my imagination. It was just a reflection of the limited examples and narratives that I had been exposed to in my life. So my first access, I should say, or the first major turning point in my life came through access to education, and more specifically through advice that challenged my original dream of being in office administration. So after completing secondary school, I got my CXC certificate, and the school that I attended, normally today you would advance into, well, they call it CAPE now. You would advance into A-levels if your school, had that program attached to it. But the school that I attended did not. It ended at CXC. And my plan, as I said, was to achieve a technical certification in office administration. So I went to John Donaldson Technical Institute, if you remember it. It's Costa today, I think. But when I got there, the registration clerk, she looked at my passes. I got high grades. And she looked at my mom and she said, you should go and do your A's, right? And my mom, we immediately went to the various schools, and eventually, I got into an A-level program, but I wasn't very enthused about it because I really wanted to go into admin. I wanted that independence, to be an independent woman, to have a career, make my own income. And this path, it aligned with my goals, what I believed was expected and appropriate. So when that registration clerk, when she intervened with her perspective to pursue my A-levels, it sort of turned things for me. So I pursued my A-levels. I wasn't very enthusiastic about it. And I did not directly enter into university life right away. I still wanted to work, and I did. I got a temporary job at a bank. But that bank went through structural changes, and there was a managing director at the time. She did like one-on-one interviews, and when she learned of, my passes, and also at the time, my mom, she had applied for a scholarship for me. I was successful in that application. She also told me, to forget this bank job, forget this contracts going from, contract to contract, and to pursue that university education. And that was an option that felt both intimidating and uncertain to me at the time. And these single pieces of guidance, they really altered the trajectory of my life. Let me move on to IT. So once, yes, I did eventually enter the University of the West Indies. I did pursue a degree in computer science and mathematics. And I think what really happened to me during university is that I was exposed to a different environment. There were peers, there were persons from different walks of life. And it's, of course, being a graduate in computer science opens, a different avenue, a different way of life. So once I graduated and I entered the technology field, the IT industry, that opened an entirely new world for me. One defined by problem solving, by logic, and the ability to improve systems in tangible ways. So early in my career, I first worked in a manufacturing plant. I later moved on to the public sector. I actually worked at the Ministry of Public Housing and Environment a little before Dr. Emily Dickford began her career there, her stewardship there. And the team that I was a part of, that IT team, we actually won the Prime Minister's Innovation Award because we were our team actually developed the first digital, online public housing solution where the public was able to go online and select or actually be able to select IT solutions or be offered, a housing solution using an IT system online. So as a software developer, a business analyst there, I was introduced to the practical application of digital skills. Using tools such as Visual Basic with Excel, I developed small applications. I actually used Microsoft Access that automated manual processes and improved operational efficiency. Now, these weren't high-profile platforms, but they addressed real everyday challenges faced by organizations and employees. Through this work, I learned that technology is not inherently about machines, about code, or complexity. At its core, technology is about understanding how systems function and identifying ways to make work better for people. Digital skills provided me with influence, the ability to change outcomes, reduce inefficiencies, and contribute meaningfully to organizational success. This realization was transformative because it reframed technology as an enabler rather than a barrier. For women, particularly those who may feel excluded from technical spaces, this perspective is critical because when women gain access to digital skills, they gain agency and they are able to shape processes, challenge inefficiencies, and participate in decision-making with confidence. So technology, when approached as a human-centered tool, becomes a powerful mechanism for equity and inclusion. So my early experiences in the IT industry, they demonstrate that investing in women's digital literacy and technical competence yields returns not only in productivity, but in leadership capacity and institutional resilience. As my career progressed, mentorship became one of the most significant forces shaping my professional growth. I once had a female supervisor in the public sector, and she played a pivotal role in developing my business analysis skills. She taught me how to examine systems critically and analyze processes thoughtfully and approach challenges with a strategic mindset. These skills extended far beyond any single role and became foundational to my leadership approach. Later, in higher education at the Global Campus, or at the then open campus, I should say, I had the opportunity to work for strong female leaders, including the project director of the project management unit, the principals, for example, our current guest, Dr. Luz Longsworth, and our deputy principal, Dr. Emily Dickford. Observing these women navigate complexity in the workplace, make decisions, and lead with confidence reinforced an essential truth for me, which is that women belong in leadership and decision-making spaces. So representation for me in that sense, it is symbolic, it is transformative, and seeing women lead changes what other women believe is achievable for themselves. It normalizes ambition, authority, and expertise. Mentorship, whether formal or informal, is an act of giving that multiplies impact. When women support women, they create pipelines of leadership and resilience that strengthen entire institutions. These experiences reaffirmed that leadership development is not solely about individual effort, it is about an ecosystem of support where knowledge, opportunity, and encouragement are intentionally shared. The gains from such ecosystems extend beyond careers to influence culture, governance, and the future of work. When I reflect on my journey today, and I see that clear pattern of investment leading to where I am now, advice redirected my educational path. Mentorship strengthened my professional competence, and leadership modeled what was possible. Because of these investments, I now serve in this capacity as the campus CIO, shaping the technology strategy of the campus. And that is the gain, but it doesn't end with me. The broader lesson is both simple and urgent. When we support women and girls through education, through mentorship, and access to digital tools, we are not merely helping individuals succeed, we are building stronger institutions, more innovative organizations, and more resilient communities. Investment in women yields measurable returns in leadership capacity, problem-solving ability, and social progress. So Gift Again challenges us to be intentional about where and how we invest. It asks leaders, educators, and policymakers to recognize that inclusion isn't just about charity, it's more about strategy. As we mark International Women's Month, the call to action is clear that for each of us, we have the ability to give, whether that be through guidance, through advocacy, through mentorship, or opportunity. And when we do, the gains extend far beyond personal achievement. They shape the future of leadership, ensuring that it is more diverse, more equitable, and more reflective of the societies that they serve. I want to thank you so much just for your time and for listening to me. And thank you for celebrating the entire month dedicated to women.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much. Again, lots of nuggets in there as well. What stood out for me was that progress is really solo. That support mechanisms, that yourself and Dr. Dick Ford mentioned, good, strong support and guidance and mentorship and that role modeling as well. And, under the theme of what we're speaking about tonight in terms of, you're doing that, paying it back as it were by giving, your experiences and knowledge and expertise to other women who may well, like myself, may not be too into the technology, still a bit frightened of it. But obviously, seeing women in and seeing yourself in that position, of I suppose it's considered mainly a male-dominated field in terms of IT. I know things are changing, but it's great to see that there are women in the industry. So thank you very much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so on to our third panelist, Dr. Liz Longsworth. Dr. Longsworth holds a doctorate in business administration in higher education management from the University of Bath in the United Kingdom, a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish and French, first class honours, a Master's of Business Administration marketing degree from the University of the West Indies, and a Master's of Arts degree in Hispanic Studies from Queen's University, Ontario, Canada. Her research and practice have focused on virtual leadership in higher education, leadership development, women in leadership, and organizational transformation and change. Dr. Longsworth has held senior leadership roles in university teaching and leadership, as well as in the private sector, in the areas of manufacturing and financial services in Jamaica, the British Virgin Islands, and Belize. After a stellar career of nearly 30 years at the University of the West Indies, where she completed her tenure in 2021, as Principal and Pro Vice Chancellor of the UWI, then Open Campus and Global Affairs, She joined the Sandals Resort International team in 2022 as Senior Corporate Director for the Sandals Corporate University, where she oversees the training and development of over 20,000 team members, located in 9 Caribbean countries. Over the past 20 years, she has also participated in and led consultancies across the region and in the UK, worked with international and regional organizations and companies such as Ernst & Young Caribbean, Unicoma Courts Belize, the Leadership Foundation UK, Fortis Belize, Development Bank of Jamaica, among others. Keenly community-oriented, Dr. Longsworth has worked with at-risk youth in Western Jamaica, Belize, Barbados, and the British Virgin Islands, as well as serves on the boards of several regional, international, and community-based organizations. She is currently the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for the University of Belize, a member of the board of the Montego Bay Community College, and an honorary fellow of the Vancouver-based Commonwealth of Learning, COL. As a member of COL's or Cole's Commonwealth Wise Women Initiative, she has been involved in mentoring young women across the Commonwealth and has a passion for training and coaching emerging leaders. So, Dr. Longsworth, over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And let me just say what a pleasure it is to see so many familiar names. I'm not seeing faces, but certainly to be back in the heart of the UA Global Campus and to be able to share with you a few of my thoughts, taking it from perhaps a slightly different perspective. Many of you know and have heard my my resume, my CV, but what I wanted to do this evening was to really share with you my journey, and that journey that really I would consider to have been a somewhat zigzag journey. I call my life a zigzag journey because there were so many twists and turns in that journey of leadership that I hope by sharing it with you, you'll see what the possibilities are for your own life. Because even if it doesn't unfold exactly as planned, there is so much that you learn as you go along this journey. So I am going to start the presentation and hope that it all goes well from the beginning. Are you seeing me? Right. So my journey is really one of what I consider to be dreams, detours, and destiny. It has been a long journey, and I do have a little interesting way of planning my life, and that is planning my life in decades. So you and I are going to go through several decades of my life and lessons in leadership from the various decades. So you may not know this, but my initial dream was to be an actress of the stage. I actually used to envision myself receiving an Academy Award. And this was really prompted by the fact that when I moved into high school, I was put in the lead role of Cinderella, and I discovered that I enjoyed being on the stage. And it really was my first true leadership role. Pity I didn't really have the voice for singing, but thankfully...
Sorry, Dr. Lewis, sorry to interrupt you. Could you just change your presentation to the presentation view as we're seeing it with the slides?
Oh, you're seeing it with the slides?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure why it is doing that. I think it's because I have 2 screens up, and that might be causing the problem. Is that better?
No, I'm still seeing it. Oh, that's better. Yes. Thank you.
That should be
Wonderful.
better. Oh, okay, great. Right. So when I went into high school, where I really started my leadership career, I discovered a gift for languages. And I moved on in my dream to being a United Nations interpreter. And I studied every language that the school offered. because that was my dream, to do global travel and to really work within the United Nations environment, mainly because I enjoyed the idea of seeing new places, but also of the work that the United Nations did. The moment that I discovered that gift for languages changed everything, because it taught me something that as leaders we need to be aware of, and that is pay attention to what comes naturally to you. Pay attention to what is authentic to you, because those are the gifts that often point you towards your purpose. And as I transitioned in my university years to studying at the University of the West Indies, two things happened to me. I fell in love with academia, and I fell in love with the University of the West Indies. Also fell in love, full stop. But it was another aha moment for me, where I realized that I really wanted to be a part of this amazing project, which was the University of the West Indies. It was my first exposure to an environment where Caribbean people were interacting. We were meeting people from all over the region and the world. And at that point, I really moved into a more academic approach, and my dream shifted to coming back to the University of the West Indies, to doing my PhD. I went to do my master's. I finished my first degree by age 20, so that's a decade complete. Went on to do my master's in Hispanic Studies and returned to the university to teach in the Department of Spanish Language and Literature at the time, and loved doing that. Started my PhD, but what happened? So things changed. So I had planned academia. I had started my PhD. I could see myself as a professor of Hispanic literature. I got married. It was my aim to have all of my children by the time I was 30, hence by the end of that decade. And all of that happened until I experienced a zag, in that my academic career was threatened, in that the Department of Spanish was downsizing, and my position was actually made not redundant, but was not renewed. This was a major crisis for me. Your whole life is turned upside down. But when these things happen, and thankfully, like our previous speakers, I had family and my mother who had modeled for me a leadership style of resilience, it was easy for me to simply zag into another approach, into a new identity. I joined the family business. I left the university for a while. I became the general manager of that family business, and I did my MBA. So I moved from, and Dr. Dickford is a very accomplished accountant, and I would hate to let her know, but I will, that accounts was the bane of my life in my MBA because I pretty much almost failed that. But considering I was coming from a liberal arts, language, literature background, I was actually very proud of myself. But you see, you then learn to, as they say in Jamaica, to wheel and come again. I had new responsibilities in a business, and therefore I had to equip myself for that kind of leadership. So my leadership grew through responsibility. I then returned to the University of the West Indies and took on a senior role in administration. And that area really grew my knowledge of the inner workings of the University of the West Indies. I worked with our distinguished professors, Professor Leslie Robinson, Professor Roy Auger, as well as Professor Gerald Layler, who was one of my mentors, and who showed me that I could lead, and he empowered me to lead his office. And he would say to me, Luz, I am a chemist. I think you should just run the campus. And he gave me that empowerment. And that's what we need as women in particular, that empowerment to have confidence in our ability. So at the end of that decade, though, life changed again. And in that decade of 30 to 40, I had to balance motherhood and career. My children were growing up. We left Jamaica. My then husband had a job in the British Virgin Islands. I had to start all over from scratch in a new career, in a career that I had never done before, and that was the financial services. So I left UWI and went into financial services. And in this picture that you're seeing on the left here, this is my boss in the company that hired me in the British Virgin Islands to be their general manager for a financial services company. Me, who almost failed accounts, was the general manager. But it wasn't about the accounts, it was about the ability to lead and develop this new organization. But I learned the realities of compromise. My children needed me. And the truth is that, yes, we can do it all, and we do it all. But sometimes you have to be intentional, and you have to understand that there are seasons in life. But it doesn't mean that you stop growing. It just means that your priorities may change. I moved countries twice in that decade, and it was quite overwhelming. But at every step of the way, I ensured that I was always learning. And I believe Dr. Dickford spoke about continuous learning. I was always learning something new. I was always expanding, and everything would come together like a jigsaw puzzle in the end, whether it was the ability to speak languages, the ability to run a company, the ability to be able to lead people and to motivate people, that all came together. I then moved to Belize, where I re-entered academia, and I taught at the University of Belize for several years before finally coming home to the University of the West Indies, the then School of Continuing Studies in Belize, and becoming a part of that amazing project of the transformation of the School of Continuing Studies and UWI into the UWI Open Campus. That was a career-defining period, because we had not really had a new campus in almost 60 years. And here we were really charting a new course, charting a campus that had never existed before, a campus that was hybrid, that was digitally enabled, a campus that had the first female principal, the first fully appointed female principal, and had women at their leadership helm. And that was so inspiring for me as I became a part of that team. But life moved on, and we move on to the next decade. And you recall I had tried to do a PhD and I had to postpone it. Well, you're never too old to reclaim your dream. My children became more independent. I refocused on my career and the leadership, particularly as I became more involved with the Open Campus. I committed to earning a doctorate, and I found something that I loved tremendously, which was higher education management and specializing in virtual leadership. I started truly becoming a student of leadership, because leadership matters. And it was certainly my experience all along the way that it was good leaders who made successful organizations. So I completed my doctorate in business administration while working full-time at the Open Campus. That was an amazing experience. Difficult, but hey, we're women, we can do it. And I completed that in 2010. And again, the end of that decade. So what happened next? Returned into that decade of the 50 onwards, and that was resilience and reinvention. that was a difficult decade. I returned into academia. There were several zigs and zags in my roles during that time. Personally, I faced divorce. I had difficult leadership lessons. I learned a lot of humility in leadership. I learned that leadership is not for the faint of heart, and that when you agree to be a leader, you have to understand that you are there to serve and to give, and it is not for you to get. Leadership is a tremendously personal journey, but it also requires a community of support. And I learned that lesson tremendously, which led me to becoming principal and pro-vice chancellor of the Open Campus. Really a crowning moment of my career. In fact, March 16th would have been, I guess, 9 years ago when I was formally inducted as principal of the UWI Open Campus. And leading that campus that was forging paths, that was pushing the envelope, that was challenging the status quo in the University of the West Indies was not, and I know it's still not, an easy task because change is difficult. But what I can say is that we had a leadership team that surrounded me, that ensured that we were always working for the best interest of our people, and we were supportive of each other. There were tough times. There were many times when you literally could break down into tears because of what was happening, but it led me to become extraordinarily resilient. When the COVID came in 2020, it was at that point that I realized what we had been setting up to do. And that was to be the catalyst, to be actually the savior. I hope I'm not exaggerating too much, Dr. Severin, you were there, the savior of the University of the West Indies, that we were able in a very short period of time, because of what we had created, to support the university-wide environment in pivoting into an online environment. And I'm so proud of the work that was done by our team, our leadership at the Open Campus in changing the way we look at teaching and learning in the region and how we look at access. And now when we're talking about AI and all of those tools, knowing that the Open Campus was always ahead of it. We were always leaders in that regard. So what happens beyond? And why I wanted to do a more personal journey for you beyond just the career is that sometimes we think, oh, leadership will end with a position. And I really want to make the point that leadership is not about positions. It's about how you position yourself. And so my decision to then retire early from the Open Campus led to new beginnings. My new role in the Sandals Corporate University is an exciting one. It bears a lot of similarities in terms of its operation to what we do in the Open Campus, but it is for a particular industry, a particular organization, one that contributes widely to the Caribbean. It's led by people who support growth and investment in human capacity development. And that helped me to discover joy in something that I never thought I would, which is hospitality and tourism, but still education, still giving back and seeing people, especially young people, grow, especially young marginalized people. And in that regard, it is so much like what our purpose is. So while the career may have zigged and zagged and changed, the purpose remains the same, and the purpose is tied to your core values, who you are, what you bring to life as a leader. And what I try to bring to life as a leader is support, is warmth, is development and growth to all who I touch. And as a woman, being authentic to who I am and not trying to imitate any other leadership styles, because women, particularly Caribbean women, are tremendous leaders. Our mothers, our sisters, the women who have, taken these countries forward. And that should never be underestimated or underrated. And making sure that you're true to who you are is important. For me, in this stage of my career, it is all about giving back, giving to gain, in the sense of giving to gain something of a legacy. And just to let you know that I have a book coming out that is called Through the Glass Bottom: Navigating Leadership's Hidden Currents, which will, I hope, really share a lot of my experiences as a female Caribbean leader in multiple industries as a way of giving back, as a way of putting something in the public space, but also something for my children, and particularly for my daughter and her friends. So I would say I end this by saying that the journey continues, and I plan my life in decades, so I'm really looking forward to the next decade, but I can't tell you what that is just yet. But thank you so much for having me, and I really look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liz Longsworth, for your presentation. Yeah, again, so much that I could, comment on, but I don't want to go into too much because I want, people to have questions and answers later on. But I liked your quote about leadership is not about positions, but how you position yourself. And I think that's really important in terms of, for women, in terms of all the things that we have to do and the hats that we have to wear and the different identities that we have to, take on. But leadership is not about the position. It's about how you position yourself and how we pivot. And what's been a theme through the presentation so far is that, it's definitely not a linear process. It kind of goes all the way around and double backs, and, it's just not a straight road. And so how we pivot and position ourselves is really important in our professional and personal lives as well. So thank you again, Dr. Liz Longsworth. So our final panelist, but by no means the least, the final panelist is Mrs. Karen Ford-Warner. Mrs. Ford-Warner has a range of expertise and experience in the fields of education, law, public sector management, tourism, theatre, mediation, and coaching. She holds qualifications from top universities in the United States, Columbia University, Teachers College, NYC, MA International Educational Development, and Harvard University, BA in Sociology, a Master's in Public Administration from the John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. She was also awarded an LLB from the University of the West Indies and a Certificate of Legal Education from the Norman Manley Law School, Jamaica. Mrs. Karen Ford-Warner is a practicing attorney and has served as in-house legal counsel at the Jamaica Commodity Trading Company Limited for 8 years before moving into executive positions in the public sector in Jamaica and the Caribbean region. She has 17 years experience in the tourism sector, serving the government of Jamaica as Director General in the then Office of the Prime Minister, Tourism Division, where she initiated the process leading to the development of Jamaica's first tourism master plan, and then served regionally as the Deputy Secretary General of the 30+ member states Caribbean Tourism Organization based in Barbados, a position she held for 8 years. Upon her return to Jamaica, she was appointed head of the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management of the University of Technology, Jamaica, and later assumed the post as Managing Director of the Tourism Product Development Company. Returning to her roots in education, she held the post of Campus Registrar of the University of the West Indies Open Campus, which is now obviously a global campus, for 10 years up to her retirement in July 2021. Since then, she has pursued her passion as a mediator, trained and certified by the Dispute Resolution Foundation in Jamaica in 2008, and personal and professional coach trained and qualified under the US-based Newfield Network. She has also undertaken consultancies in the fields of tourism, public sector management and policy implementation, and capacity building. She is a supporter of the theatre arts, primarily as a founder and trustee of the Earl Warner Trust, established in memory of her late husband, Barbadian dramaturge, director and actor Earl Warner. Among other things, the Trust provides scholarships and bursaries to deserving final year students at the School of Drama, Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts in Jamaica. Mrs. Ford Warner is blessed with 2 adult children in whom she is well pleased. Over to you, Mrs. Karen Ford Warner.
Thank you so much, Colleen. It's hearing you go through that list. It's it really gave me an opportunity to look back, and hearing the stories of my colleagues here about their lives. It really caused for reflection, and being the last person, it actually gave me a chance to think through a couple of other things. But let me say that as the website for International Women's Day 2026 states, the theme, Give to Gain, it of course recognizes and encourages a mindset of generosity and collaboration. It emphasizes the power of reciprocity and support. When women thrive, we all thrive. But of course, we know that the Global Campus, through education and its training programs, have given this accessibility to our Caribbean citizens, whether face-to-face or digitally, and have been empowering our men and women, in fact, disproportionately perhaps our women, as the principal says. But this is important because today we have the opportunity under this campaign to give visibility and knowledge through sharing our own stories, through mentoring and amplifying women's voices in the world. And so I'm really delighted to be part of this panel and to be able to share some of my story. And I actually want to bring Dr. Longsworth into one of the stories because we were on a flight together, a BWE flight, I think, to Barbados, and we were sitting together, having been introduced by a friend. And she started talking about the Open Campus, and I was very intrigued and responding. And she said, you know, you should come and work with us. And that was years before I actually went to the Open Campus. So I do believe in my life that there are so many things that we manifest, whether consciously or unconsciously. And that's why it's so important for us to pay attention to our thoughts, because we can manifest so many things. So I'm just going to go back a little bit to how I got here. Again, I was born in the mid-1950s, and I had parents who came from the countryside of Jamaica, but they were ambitious. My father had gone to serve in World War II. He had managed to go from being a tailor to an accountant. He was definitely on an upwardly mobile track. He and my mother sold a cow and bought a house paid down on a house in Mona Heights, which was, again, a community of upwardly mobile people, civil servants trying to get through, people in professions, but especially a lot of Black Jamaicans were able to build at that time prior to independence. And one of the things that was critically important to them was education, the importance of education, and the fact that that would help their families to advance. So my father really made an effort to ensure that I had a quality education. Although he couldn't afford it, he put me into a preparatory school In fact, I remember when my first report came back and it said that, you know, I was just walking from room to room and I really wasn't doing very much. He threatened me, you know, I'm going to send you to primary school if you don't settle down. But the point was that they were hoping for a better life for their family. And we were part of that process. In fact, my brother grew up to be the first PhD in our family, working with the World Bank for over 30 years and that sort of thing. So it was already set in us that we had to do well, and that, you know, there were no boundaries. I didn't grow up thinking that as a girl I couldn't do certain things. In fact, the only thing that I knew about is that if I brought home a school report with 10 A's and 1 B, I was asked about the B. So excellence was a hallmark of things, and I was very blessed and fortunate to have the access to incredible educational opportunities throughout my life. But I think one of the really important contributions to my development was the women who taught me at St. Hugh's High School for Girls. This was, again, one of our premier schools that really nurtured and groomed our women to be able to take over leadership in the future. There was, again, no expectation of anything except the highest achievements from the women. And that has been, I think, lived out across the region because of a number of these schools that had these women who were consciously building the confidence, the skills, the attributes and values of women. And I think, again, I got the opportunity to be part of that journey of just absolutely exciting women. And so I think that empowered me in terms of where I saw I could get to. So at the end of my A levels, I was hoping to go to France. I'd done French A levels, I had done Spanish, and I thought it would be great, like Luz, to become an interpreter and maybe start off as a tour guide in France. I had all these dreams. And then I recognized my father made it clear that there was no provision for that. I could go to UWI and do well. But out of the blue, it seemed to me, again, one of these gifts, 2 men showed up at my house one afternoon. I was still in my school uniform, and they said they were Rotarians, and they were looking to select a student for the Rotary Exchange Student Program in Canada, for a student from Jamaica, and I had been recommended. And that apparently simple moment, really changed my life, because I went to Canada in this program for a year. I lived with 9 families in 1 year. I would want to think that it had something to do with the fact that there were no other Black children in the school. And it was an adventure for the families to have this Black Jamaican girl staying with them. But it was also an adventure for me, because that's when I discovered the diversity of Canada. And that within that little town of Niagara Falls, you know, with the falls, that's where I lived and went to school, they had people from Estonia. The country didn't even exist at the time, but there were refugees from Estonia. I had host families from the US, from Holland, from Germany, all over the place. And it really introduced me to that diversity that was Canada. But it was a great year because it did, it gave me opportunities to gain confidence and to mix freely. And I realized that I was comfortable in the space with people of all different backgrounds and so forth. And so at the end of, towards the end of the year, a friend encouraged me to apply to Harvard University. I'd never given it a thought. He was at MIT and he said, yes, now is a good time. You should do that. And again, because of how things align in the universe for us, it turns out that the president of the Ontario, of the Rotary Club that I was being sponsored by, was the president of the Harvard Alumni Association of Ontario. And he invited me to his home and he interviewed me there. He after dinner in his study, and he asked me how many versions of my my application essay did I do, and I said, well, quite honestly, I sent for the application form the day it was due, so there was no time to do versions. I just wrote it, and he said, oh, you know, I did 5 drafts of mine. Anyway, I think one of the things that was also a good thing is that I had no real appreciation of what it meant to be admitted to an Ivy League school. And I think had I known, perhaps I might have been a little more queasy, but I went through and I was admitted with full scholarship and stayed there for 4 years, initially for my undergraduate degree. It was again an amazing experience because you felt different. It wasn't like you were in Jamaica, and although we have different shades and classes, it's your home and you're in the Caribbean. I was now, you know, in an environment that was very different. Cultures were very different. And I remember my first experience with racism with a lecturer in accounting who I went to seek advice because I was not, although my father was an accountant, that was not my forte either, Luz. So, but I found him to be very unhelpful. And I began for the first time to understand some of this background to racism. But fortunately, I found my space and I was able to find a community of people, and I was able to actually establish a community of the Harvard Caribbean Club, which were mostly second generation Caribbean students, people, but they it allowed a space for me and others to have as our own. I also found that I was able to make friends with former colonials. The film director, Mira Nair, was a classmate of mine, and we became good friends, largely because of the fact, as I used to tell her, we're colonials. She remembers when she came to visit us in Jamaica, she recalled that, you know, my daughter's school looked just like hers and the uniform was the same and this sort of thing. So we were able to make connections through our history, but also through our interests like theater and that sort of thing. And I must tell you, the Caribbean Club is still alive today, about 45 years later. So that was the beginning of the overseas journey. And I went back, I went on to Colombia because I really was committed. I thought education was my vocation. And so I wanted to go on to do a master's in education, despite the fact that my brother told me a much better thing would have been a joint degree from JD MBA from Harvard University, which it probably would have been. But I was committed to doing education, and I went to Columbia and I did a master's in education. Then I went home, and in the spirit of giving back and giving service, which is one of also the guiding principles in my life and career, I went back to teach at St. Hugh's, my alma mater, for a year. Taught English, history, and what was called general paper at the time, from third to sixth formers. And I've continued my involvement with the school. In fact, tomorrow, as a mentor, I'll be going to do my monthly mentorship session with my grade sevens. It's 7:30 in the morning, but it's something that I feel committed to do, and there's still that connection with the school. The only thing about teaching is that the pay was very low. In spite of having a master's in education, I was making 600 Jamaican dollars a month, and that included $35 increment for having a master's degree. And so I found it difficult to live on that, especially since my father gave me an old car that needed to get gas in it and that sort of thing. So I ended up going to moonlight primarily in the theater and television. I was invited to audition for a play, which is how I met my husband, because he was a theater director, originally from Barbados, but had been invited by Dennis Scott, a Jamaican poet and dancer and Renaissance man, to come and teach and work in Jamaica, because he was doing a master's in directing at Manchester University, and he met Earl there. So I was invited to audition for a play, and turns out the director was this Earl Warner from Barbados and the UK, and that was a turn in my life at that point. I was working and trying to decide if I was going to do a PhD in education. But at the time I thought, okay, I'm getting serious with this theater person, and I'm going to, I'm not sure how all of this will work out financially if we decide we want to have a family and so forth. So I ended up taking the decision after speaking with a dear friend who was a lawyer, became a judge, even president of the Court of Appeal, who encouraged me to do law. And so I started the journey of law. I did my first year in Jamaica, the second and third year in Barbados, which was very important because although my husband was from Barbados, he was very keen to live in Jamaica. But I discovered the Eastern Caribbean, because those of us who are in Jamaica will know that we don't really know the countries south of us and our Caribbean brothers and sisters. So it was a wonderful education for me to want to be in Barbados and to go to Trinidad for my annual excursions, but also to have students with us from across the Caribbean. That regional experiment, that important time, is not current. It's not now happening, but it was such an important time for us to be able to get to know the Caribbean and get to know our Caribbean brothers and sisters. And our class was small, just 30-something out of us, but we have kept in touch. We have reunions. We were in Belize. We've been to Ghana. We've been all over the place because we have the capacity in terms of our friendships and connections in these countries. So that was sad for us when things changed in that regard. I just want to talk about, we spoke about giving service, and that's one of the cornerstones of my life. It came through my parental examples, through church, through school values, and so forth. But also, giving service taught me about faith, community, generosity, the joy of volunteerism, leadership, caring, and love. To give to gain, as the motto for this year, you give to gain a sense of purpose, a deep satisfaction in helping others. There's a lot more that could be said about my journey through work, having the opportunity to come out of law school as class valedictorian and be able to get a job as legal counsel for the largest government, one of the largest government companies, fresh out of law school. And then, being able to move into public sector management and policy, because in that previous position, I got very interested in policy, and let's see how things are actually, how do we ensure that things are planned and that they have, there is some guidelines that we need to follow. And being an attorney, I think I was attracted to that as well because of the structures, the logic, the accountability that was important in ensuring that we were sustainable and that we were doing things in good order. I think at that stage of my life, in good order was probably a good the motto that was guiding me. I think I thought things needed to be in good order. And it's not surprising, I guess, that I went on to become Director General, which here is the same level as a Permanent Secretary, Registrar, and positions that Deputy Secretary General, CTO, and so on, positions that required me to pay attention to order and company secretary, those kinds of things. Because I think if we want to ensure that we achieve certain goals and we do it in ways with integrity, we need to have some semblance of good order. So I just wanted to mention two quick things in terms of that have become passions of mine over time, and that's mentorship. I mentioned I don't do St. Hugh's mentorship, and I've mentored staff and students and some open campus and lots of staff over the years. But the mediation, I'm a trained mediator, I think Colleen said, and I have found that to be an excellent example of giving to gain. Because in a world of personal, national, global conflict, I think mediation is a voluntary dispute resolution process in which trained neutral parties are able to facilitate and coordinate the negotiation of disputes. So the mediator gives an opportunity for persons to have a discussion on their problems, guided discussion, look at the issues that need to be resolved and alternative solutions for resolution of disputes. And in today's world, more than ever, we need to have mediation. I do mediation in schools. I see situations coming out of the court system. And I think that the work in mediation, in helping us to preserve relationships, we give up the competitive and combative positions and we focus on key issues, and that through that way we gain an agreement that best suits all the parties, and hopefully, as I said, preserve relationships that will make the agreement sustainable. The other area of work that I do now in my retirement is coaching, which again is a way of giving and helping people to give up and release their old thinking and beliefs, and able to gain new perspectives that allow for change and intentional action. So that's also another very powerful powerful tool that we can use to enrich lives, give people an opportunity to live their very best lives. And I know I'm going on for a bit because I've changed everything up, but I just want to, Chair, do I have about 2 minutes to just read a little poem?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, let me complete it. It's called The Most Important Thing, and it's by Julia Fehrenbacher. I am making a home inside myself, a shelter of kindness where everything is forgiven, everything allowed, a quiet patch of sunlight to stretch out without hurry, where all has been banished and buried is welcome, spoken, listened to, released. A fiercely friendly place I can claim as my own. I'm throwing arms open to the whole of myself, especially the fearful, fault-finding, falling apart, unfinished parts, knowing every seed and weed, every drop of rain has made the soil richer. I will light a candle, pour a hot cup of tea, gather round the warmth of my own blazing fire. I will howl if I want to, knowing this flame can burn through any perceived problem, any perceived perfectionism, any lying limitation, every heavy thing. I'm making a home inside myself, where grace blooms in grand and glorious abundance, a shelter of kindness that grows all the truest things. I whisper hallelujah to the friendly sky. Watch now as I burst into blossom. And I just share that with you because I feel that at this stage that life has been such a journey. I'm so grateful. And I hope we all have time in our lives for reflection of this and other kinds because it's this very, very important journey that we've been blessed with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ford Warner, for that, and especially the poem at the end. That was beautiful. Thank you very much indeed. Again, there's just so much that you said that we can unpack. You know, you talked about pay attention to our thoughts. You know, that was very powerful because I think, as you said, having that opportunity to reflect and also our thoughts, you know, become actions. And sometimes we then, because of our thoughts, we kind of maybe take ourselves off of our purpose or onto our purpose because of the thoughts that we have. So our thoughts are very, very powerful. And I think that is something that we do need to be reminded of. And having the opportunity to also to reflect, because sometimes with all our busy lives and things that we're doing, reflection is needed, but sometimes the space to do that is not available. You talked about also the experience and opportunities, obviously, that came to you, and that was that enabled you to take on such wonderful experiences and to travel and living with 9 families in 1 year as a young lady. That's you know, that is a feat in itself. But you was able to use, you know, that opportunity to gain knowledge and skills and use the experience that you had, you know, in terms of learning about different diversity and different cultures and so on, and to, you know, bring that all into your own life in terms of your career and how your career developed as well up until now. You're still working in terms of mentorship and so on. So thank you so much for your presentation as well. So that's the end of our presentation. So I'd like to hand over to the audience if they have any questions. I'm not seeing anything in the chat at the moment, but if you would like to just raise your hand and turn your camera on and speak, if you have a question, that would be great. I'll give you a few moments to gather yourselves. Don't all rush at once. No questions at this time? Well, I have a few. Maybe I should start and get the ball rolling, perhaps. So, one of the things that resonated through all the presentations was the road not being straight. taking different turns and directories and, but still ending up in a place of where, you're very happy and contented and have fulfilled your purposes. So what would you say, or what would be your advice, I guess, to women who sometimes might feel deflated because their life is not going in the way they perceived or they had hoped for? What kind of advice would you give them to kind of maybe try and stick the course a little bit? I asked Dr. Dick Ford first because you was first up with that.
So you're saying someone is stuck. It's almost like you're stuck, you mean, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, you have this plan, don't you, that you want your career to go this way, or you want to have children by this time, or be married, or whatever. And sometimes life be lifing, and it doesn't happen quite the way. So in terms of just kind of some advice in terms of how to continue so that they don't give up, basically.
Right, yeah. So for me, I'm not the best person to say. I can say from other people's experience, but I'm one of the most unintentional persons you will ever meet. I've found myself in situations, as I said, it's faith. However, I have a friend who had some very difficult times. And one of the things she did from very young, and that helped her throughout life, is she had this thing she would say every day to herself: never give up, never, ever give up. And this is Dr. Robertine Chatterton, actually, and she had some of the most challenging things that a person could have to deal with. And the things that she did out of that, phenomenal. And so I believe for me, I think I just got a little inspiration to, in terms of how I see things, always be a person with hope. Always have hope. I think hope is it's almost like a lifeline for a person. The minute you give up hope, or the minute you think you should give up, that is the end. But certainly you're going through something. And one of the things my mother used to say, and it shall come to pass, meaning that too will pass. It does not ever remain. When you listen to Dr. Longswood's story, Luz, it has been very sentimental to me listening to your voice, sir. Hearing you talk, it is like, oh, I miss her. No reflection on Francis, but I miss you.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I've found is the need to have that sense of hope and have people that you can go to, but hope, never giving up, never. I've seen so many situations, and I think me personally, as I said, I tend to just lay it at the feet of the cross, lay it before the Lord, and I move on. But that doesn't mean it wasn't difficult, but I tend to not take it on. But certainly I think never giving up and speaking to yourself, speaking those kinds of positive things to yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Moving over to Dr. Luz, because you was actually quite intentional about your career. You had it kind of played out. You wanted children by 30. You was going to get an Oscar, and you was very, very intentional. So
and some things happened. I think the lesson is that whenever, and I call them my zigs and zags. So whenever there is a zag, which if you think about a zag tends to be a setback, that you look for the opportunity within it. And tied in with what Emily is saying about faith, that there is a reason for this particular change of course. For me, it has always been, okay, what can I learn from this? So when I lost my job at the University of the West Indies, when they literally just made the role obsolete, I decided, you know what, there's this newfangled thing called computers. I think I should learn something about computers while I'm searching for another job. It was the beginning of my excitement and interest in technology, and it is actually something that I know, I'm a leading voice in terms of my industry. So everything that changes, everything that doesn't go quite right, is really an opportunity for something new, for learning something new, for seeing a different way of doing things. It might look like a setback, but as the preachers say, it's a setback to step up.
Set up.
Right. Right. So I believe in optimism. I believe in ensuring that you grow through those setbacks as well, that you don't
Yeah.
stop investing in yourself, that you do something for yourself, even while you're in that moment or that deep valley of difficulty, that you ensure that you build yourself up in
Yes.
some way for the next, the next opportunity that's about to come.
Mhm. Yep.
Before I go
Yep.
to Dr. Severin, do you want to, with Tracy or Karen, would you like to chip in?
Well, for me, I always remember my good girlfriend at her wedding. And wedding for women, it's a big event, right? You plan it from, I guess since you're born, you think about this fairy tale wedding, princess gown, whatever. But I remember she said, nothing happens before it's time. And you can think of, and I always wonder, is it it's the possessive pronoun or it is, it is. But either translation, it really does apply. And Trinidadians also say, what in meteor in passio, which is basically the same thing, right? What is for you is for you.
For you.
And I know, like for me, there were times, like when I got my O's, I didn't enter the workforce right away. And all my friends, they got their jobs, whether it be a summer job or whatever. I got my A's and I was still at home. And I was like, okay, all of us are supposed to have the same opportunities. So why am I still at home? And I think what sort of pushed me was that I was always looking for the next opportunity, if that's the right word. What can I do to make myself valuable so I do get a job? And that's how my sort of career in studying started. Like I was always learning something new, not necessarily in IT, as I said, but different areas, not necessarily academia either. But my friend, her words, that always stands out for me. Nothing happens before it's time.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you. Mrs. Carford, did you want to say something? You're muted if you're speaking. No? No, okay. I'm not sure. Oh, you do want to say something? Okay. Yeah, just unmute your mic. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were speaking to Dr. Severin. No, I was just again thinking about manifesting what you want is something that I had done, as I said, consciously and unconsciously over the years. I sometimes realized when I was getting something that I had actually been manifesting it. But when it's sort of a faith that you have that this is going to come to pass because it's nothing you're planning. And if you believe in a creator, the plans have been in place for a long, long time before it came to you as a solution. So I think there is that. But I also say, I have a saying, this too will pass, because I've had a lot of challenges as well. My husband died at 46 and my children were 8 and 4. And so they're now 35 and 31. So it's been a journey to get to this point. And I think when I think back on it, I think, but I just kept going. I just kept going. It was like I didn't have any option. So I just kept going, and there were opportunities. So you just had to make them work for you. But sometimes you reflect and think, oh, maybe I should have, could have. But all I remember is that you just have to keep going. You have 2 children to look after, and you just need to get on with it. And I took them to live in Barbados, so they would be with his family because I didn't have any family in Jamaica. So, and there was a job opportunity, and so things opened and supported along the way, and you just have to have faith and know that it's going to be okay. Affirm it every day.
Thank you for that. Principal, your hand is up.
Yes, please, as the Barbadians would say. Karen would be familiar with that expression. What must I say? My heart is full. If you, and I want to thank, I want to thank all the panelists. I mean, this has been not only informative but nostalgic. You know, seeing Luz and Karen, as Emily has said, and Emily, have no fear in saying that you miss Luz, because I miss her too, and I miss Karen. I mean, and here, and I'm saying that for a particular philosophical point. Ambassador June Soomer, as if preempting this particular forum, and I'm not too sure whether, Colleen, you heard Ambassador June Soomer in her introductions at Campus Council yesterday. She spoke of the great women in the global campus, and how, and she had started from the framework or the scaffolding of our dearly departed Professor Hazel Simmons McDonald as paving the way. And she moved along that trajectory down to Luz Longsworth, and then she came to me as being the first male principal, but with a team in which women preponderated. And of course, I actually embrace that. And I find myself in the company of a lot of women. I mean, I am outvoted at my own home. My wife and my daughter. And I mean, you know, when you have to be a very strong man to actually stand up to these very powerful women, if you think that you want to make a point and you're on the right side. But the truth is that in this very forum, if you did a survey of the participants, you will see that I'm the only male in the Zoom tonight. And I'm saying to you that this is not for no rhyme nor reason. I find myself very comfortable in the presence of great women. And I often joke, but as I reflect and as I listened to Emily and Karen and Luz and Tracy tonight, I often joke that a male who understands the power of women can be a very confident and happy male, because at least you don't live your life trying to be more powerful than ladies around you. What in fact you do, you settle into your role and you treat the women around you as human beings, as equals, and in fact we suffer from the geopolitical dynamics going on now, that the Black men in the United States of America, some of them seem to have felt that it was better to elect a Caucasian male than to have a female be the president. And I'm saying to you that when we take these decisions as men, we suffer for it, because we don't treat the women with the education, with the experience, and with the arguments that they bring to us. Some of us look at them as female and not as equal human beings. And that is the tragedy that we face in the world today. But apart from that, I think, and as I listened and as I ruminated over all what has been said tonight, you know, I am thinking that, and it's perhaps a selfish view, that there needs to be a forum where brave men, and I shouldn't be using the word brave, but you know, it apparently takes bravery and courage, but men can be part of a panel where they ponder, reflect on the powerful women and the women in their lives, not necessarily power in terms of economic or political power, but the women, the ordinary women in their lives who have made them leaders, who have supported them as leaders. Because the age-old saying that behind, and we don't no longer say that, but behind or besides every great man is a powerful and great woman as well. And I'm saying that when I reflect on my mother telling me things like, you cannot catch flies with vinegar, or telling me, Francis, it's so in my moments of disappointment, something I've been perhaps when I first applied to university, but I didn't get a scholarship and my parents couldn't afford to send me. And I'm disappointed, but my friends have gone on. Or as Tracy said, I had my A-levels. All of us wanted to work in the bank. I applied to the bank. I went for an interview and I was told I need to have something else and so on. But I saw friends with less qualifications than myself get through. But my mother told me, Francis, God has a plan for everyone and he has one for you. So that's a woman, and I wish men would think about that. This is a woman who supported me and who enabled me to become what I am. And I'm saying also that I have found myself having the privilege and pleasure of supporting women and females who have not disappointed me in terms of their leadership, but also who I have relied upon for advice, for counsel, and everything. And I keep saying to Emily and others, and Luz probably doesn't know that, I went to Luz, and thank you, Luz, for the vote of confidence. I said, Luz, I listened to you at campus council, at university council, at FNGPC. I mean, you're so, so fluent, you present very well, you do all of this. How do you do it? I wish I could do like you. And Luz told me, in a motherly way, Francis, you do you. You do you. Be yourself. And that is good enough. You are enough. And today, several years later, I reflect on that. And it is that courage that Luz has given me. And I don't think I have ever failed the campus in terms of presenting and representing the campus well. Because Luz told me, you do you. And this is sort of encouragement I've gotten from women. And I would like to share those things, those sentiments with other men and so on. And I think we have to get to the stage where we understand, and it's all about mutual respect. It's not about male or female. I think if we can come to a stage in this world where we can have mutual respect, where we can see and we hear these stories. We don't know what people have gone through. We just think that they have dropped from the sky successfully. Karen said, what happened? Her husband died and she had very young children. We see Karen successful, but we don't know what she has gone through. But she has been resilient, It is such a pleasure to see Tracy, because I always thought Tracy the mayor, and and I have to tell you that we have a sort of a culture where people don't realize that in spite of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, what women can do, you will still walk into some organizations and you will make a suggestion. And I have stories to tell. You'll make a suggestion that I think such and such a person should be such and such, to have such and such a post. And people look at you incredulous. But she's not so experienced. and you hear the overtone, she's female. How do you give it to her instead? That kind of thing. And I reject those arguments. I've always rejected them, even at other public fora, because I do not want, and that's where the self-interest come in, I do not want anyone to say to me or to say to my daughter at any time that you're not entitled, you're not worthy of such and such a position because you're female. They may not say that directly, but I feel a sense of duty and responsibility to create the enabling factors that my daughter would not have to go through some of the things that women have gone through. So I could go on and on. Everyone knows that, but thank you very much. My heart is full, I said.
Thank you so much, Principal, for that. That kind of leads me to my next question. Well, first of all, let me ask if there's any questions from the audience first, just to give them an opportunity, because it is about, two-way conversation. No hands or anything at the moment. Okay. So my next
Sorry,
question
Colleen,
was,
there is a question in the
is
chat
there? Oh, okay. Thank
from
you.
Cherise, asking any tips or guidance for younger women looking to advance in higher education.
Okay. Who would like to take that question?
Well,
Dr.
since I have the
As you read it out?
I would just say that the important thing is to be intentional about it. And the beauty about the era that we're living in is that it doesn't have to be, for some of us, we had to go away and immerse ourselves in a master's program, leave your home, leave your family. We have the opportunities now where you can do it flexibly, you can do it on your own schedule. I think the important thing is to just be intentional about what you want to do, and then to find something that is going to fit into your life at this point in time. A lot of young women are working, they're trying to build their life, but it doesn't mean that they can't study. But we do have a much more flexible higher ed system now. And of course, the UWI Global Campus is the place where they should all go for that flexibility. I can end on that note.
Thank you for the plug. Thank you for that, Dr. Lewis. I would say, though, just going back of what Principal had mentioned about, being in spaces where there's this overtone or undertone, as it were, with regards to the fact that, oh, it's a woman, so maybe, we shouldn't consider this person or what have you. How would you, I guess, this is for the panel, but how would you suggest or tips you would give to kind of circumvent that? Because obviously if we're not in the room, we don't, we're not hearing we've got all the qualifications, we've got the experience, but there's still that kind of, that power structure, that gendered approach to leadership, particularly in certain industries such as tech and IT and stuff. So going on from the question from Cherise, and obviously what Dr. Severin said about, spaces still having that kind of very gendered view of leadership. How do we navigate that?
Well, maybe I should take it. I'm sort of the new kid on the block. You should say. For me, of course, it was unexpected, my appointment, unexpected. It wasn't an aspiration of mine. So I would hear those voices the loudest, like, why her? How come her? What happened for this to happen? What I do, I think it's more that my personal track record is to do my best, regardless of what somebody says. And I think that was instilled in me from my mom. I mean, she provided the conditions for me to excel, not really not finances or anything like that. She made sure that I was fed, provided lessons for school. So basically, I knew the path that I had to take to achieve something, regardless of what conditions existed. So I think that is something that has been instilled in me, that regardless of the voices of the opposition, you still have your goal in sight, your goal in mind, and you keep working towards it. That's for me.
Thank you. Any other comments from the panel?
I want
ahead,
to add that we need more men like Dr. Severin, and I would say my son as well. We need to influence men in a way that they have that understanding. Yeah, and I would say that one of the things we noticed, I was discussing this with my daughter recently, that even though you have 70 or 80% of enrollment in the UE as females and a very small percentage as males, when you go out there and you look at who are leading the institutions, the majority are still men. And you ask yourself, how come? But I can say that we are seeing a lot more, and as Francis said, it's not, we shouldn't really say good men or we're seeing a lot more men who have a sense of fairness, and they're looking at, like, for example, when I got called to go and serve in government, Mr. Patrick Manning, his focus was to have as many women in the cabinet as he could find women who, who would be willing, because the other thing is he would have engaged very well-educated women who were not willing to go into government, into politics. And so sometimes it really is, when you have people in positions, women as well, because there are some women who may block other women as well. So there is that kind of, is having a mentality of giving the job to the best qualified person. And sometimes it's not even just qualified. You're looking for potential as well, because there must always be that sense of helping people to get to where they are, where they need to be. Sometimes you can spot talent. I mean, for me, when I was asked to be in government, I was shocked. And I would say, when I was asked to be deputy campus principal, I was shocked. In both cases, I almost fell off the chair, because sometimes I personally see myself in a very simple way. And sometimes when I hear people read out my bio, I'm like, oh, that's what happened. But it happened, as I said, I cannot tell you that I got up and said, oh, I want to this and I want to do that and I just found myself always, and it was, and I said, and the opportunities came, and nearly everything was fully funded. The only thing that was never fully funded was my first degree. And so having people who saw my potential all the time is what made the difference. And I think that is it. More men, more women who will make that space, for other people.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that resonated with with all your presentations, where you all spoke about other persons who saw the potential in you. They saw that you could do this and they suggested that you do that. So sometimes it's not about what we see in ourselves, it's what other people can see in us. And I'd like to go on to that next question, actually, about in terms of, in education, we hear a lot about imposter syndrome. And, which is, for those who don't know, I'm sure everybody knows, which is that persistent or kind of consistent intellectual, professional self-doubt, and maybe even fear of being exposed, even though you may have the experience, the qualifications, and the track record. So did you ever experience that? Because, a few of you said you didn't expect this, you fell off your chair, you wasn't looking for it. Did you ever experience imposter syndrome? And if you did, how did you kind of get yourself out of it?
Never experienced imposter syndrome.
Good.
I might have been shocked that they asked me, but the minute that I'm put in a position, I go and do everything that I have to do to be ready. And that's why I spoke about courage in what I shared. Courage is something that comes, it is a big part of being a leader, and you have to actually see yourself, understand yourself as a leader. But you're still shocked that people ask you to do things. But when I do show up, if I'm told something, I immediately go and do. When I was asked to be deputy campus principal, I went and I got a coach, and I got the coach to do top-level psychometric tests on, for me, and work with me, work through those issues, and I was coming into a situation where you had to do some crisis management. So despite having lots of qualifications that people think is everything, that sense of if I'm asked to do something, I'm going to show up ready. Well, to the best of my ability, because I mean, we can't predict everything. But I certainly always make an effort to learn, to figure out and to understand. I think self-awareness especially is a big thing for me. So I made sure at all points I tried to understand. And like when I was in government, I went in there as a real academic. I read every single thing. They gave us a big, thick book about all the rules, and I read it from cover to cover and made sure that I showed up, with that understanding. So I feel I never felt any imposter syndrome. I always see this thing about imposter syndrome, and I don't understand it at all. So maybe I should let somebody else talk.
Anybody else like to comment on that? Because there are people who do feel that they're not, even though they've got the position or they're in the position, they don't necessarily always feel that necessarily they are as good enough. As I said, but even though evidence shows that they are good enough, there is that, level of perhaps insecurity in obtaining the job or undertaking the position. But that's good to hear that if that's not been your experience, so okay. Any other questions from the floor? I'm not seeing anything in. Oh no, hold on. Let me just check the chat.
I just want to add, though, that we should encourage people to not follow up, not grab onto these, what I would call trends, and, that you hear people talk about imposter syndrome. No, don't take that on. Go and get yourself prepared for whatever you're asked to do.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you in terms of what Mrs. Ford Warner was talking about in terms of your mindset. It's all about making sure that you have that positive mindset, and again, going where Tracy was saying, and I think Karen also said the same thing about what is for you will come to pass, and so on and so forth. I think we have to take on to those positive attributes, but it's just something that comes up in education quite a lot, and I know persons have mentioned it. So just wanted to raise it, but I wholly agree with you. It's not something that we should be taking on. I see a hand. Andrea, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I can't turn on my video because I'm in home clothes.
That's
But
okay.
I hope that my profile picture is sufficient.
It is. It is.
I'm here listening. My daughter was listening with me up until about 15 minutes ago. And the theme, Give to Gain, really hit me because she's hearing all of this advice. She's getting this advice. The women are giving her these nuggets and this advice, sharing their experiences and everything. And I remember at one point when she heard Cambridge and she said she heard Harvard and Columbia, she said, "Oh wow, big head people, these people bright." And then she heard about people pouring into them and strangers giving them advice, like when Tracy went to the place to do she was advised to go do the A levels, and then Dr. D's friends were telling her, to go on and apply for the scholarships, and Dr. Longsworth, where she was in places where the persons were encouraging her that she can be a general manager, even though she might not have the background. And then Mrs. Ford Warner went off to Canada and had all those experiences. So she heard so much today, and she's shy, she's an introvert. So by giving her this knowledge and this sharing your experiences, she was able to gain, that I can do certain things, that I could put myself out there and go and achieve my goals. So thank you so much. I don't have a question, but I really wanted to say that I'm pleased that she was able to hear this and be a part of this forum tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that feedback. I think we can all go home now because job is done. Job is done. That's exactly what the point of this evening's session was about, experienced leaders, women who are expertise in their field, being able to give that knowledge and pass on that baton, as it were, to the younger generation, and to even not the younger generation, but even just women in general who are aspiring to elevate in their careers and so on. So I'm very, very glad for that feedback, Andrea. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I see time is running a lot longer than we anticipated. I don't see there's any more questions. I just wanted to ask one question just to finish off. The theme tonight, as we know, was Give to Gain. I guess what one action can we take to advocate for ourselves and other women? We just heard from Andrew about, a young person listening in. What can we do to advocate for ourselves and other women?
If I may, Colleen, I
Yes,
think
please.
there are many times that we're in spaces where we hear things that are negative, especially regarding women moving into positions. And I think it's important that women become advocates for women. It really is a bit of a I won't call it a pet peeve, but it is something that I feel we have not always been good at, because we tend to maybe feel that we won't be heard, or that we don't want to get into the argument, and we move away from it. Dr. Severin and Mrs. Ford Warner will know that in the academy, it is a problem. It is a problem, and in some of the meetings where you're talking about promotions and so on, there is that underlying hint of misogyny that women have to speak out about. And in the open campus, former open campus, we had great, advocates, Professor Simmons MacDonald, Professor Barreto. When they spoke out in those meetings, they were often pushed to the side, but they spoke out and they stood up for other women who were being put forward for positions. If we are in those spaces, we should speak up. I believe that is, the role of especially those of us who have been there and done that and are now in senior positions or are in advisory positions, to be the advocates and to bolster the upcoming generation of women in their confidence. Because yes, there is imposter syndrome. There is, unfortunately, but it is because of the environment that they are in, that they are made to feel that they are imposters. So our role is to ensure that they are empowered, that they are strengthened, and that they are advocated for. Men have an old boys club, I call it, and they look out for each other, right?
We do.
And I don't think we call it an old girls club, but we have a sisterhood.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what we need to do. We need to embrace our sisterhood, especially in the Caribbean, because it's our sisters who surround us and support us all the time. And we
Mhm.
need to translate that into the workforce a lot better than we have been doing.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, Mrs. Ford Warner.
Just adding a little bit to what Lou said, and it is really about building this truly supportive community for our sisters and helping them to self-actualize, but in very specific ways, giving sound advice, coaching, the mentorship, providing recommendations when they need them, facilitating study leave, making calls to the right people, publicizing success stories. That's how the fellas do it. And I think we need to take some of those lessons and ensure that our women are where they deserve to be. They're not imposters.
No, not at all. I agree. Yes, Prince.
So having listened to Dr. Longsworth and Karen and Luz, something came to my mind that we have seen in UWI. I mean, I've been in UWI since 1991. We've seen it. We've seen young men come in and in a flash, they are moved into senior positions. I've seen it. I can actually list them out. And then when it happens to a female, there are even females who go about saying they're not ready yet. They just got their doctorate or and one of the things is I do advocate for people who are around me, and I always look at their capacity, their competence, their diligence, more than anything like how long you had a doctorate or if you went this place or no. And so there is that disparity. And it's only when you all, both Luz and Karen, started speaking, I remembered these examples that there are, in fact, these barriers. And you have to be fighting them because I've heard over the last 2-3 years, all these stories, oh, the person don't have their doctorate, oh, the person has their doctorate, but they just got it. And this time you're talking about people with high level competence, women. And as I said, since 1991, I've seen the men being moved up. And I'm not seeing the competence in some, I'm not saying they're all like that, but they are indeed moved up very quickly into positions. And so indeed, I take the advice and guidance from Luz and Karen. We must advocate, we must coach, we must help, and do what we have to do. So that's my contribution to that. So thanks to I wouldn't say the old girls, but the ladies who gave the sage advice first. God helped me to remember that part.
Excellent, thank you. I think there's a comment from Dr. Severin. All right, okay. You said that, yeah, women also say these negative things about women, which is tragic, yeah. And you said something, I think you mentioned about women working the gas stations, there are only females at the pumps, and females are working hard. Yep, that's what we do. We work hard. Okay.
Cherise has a question.
I see a comment there.
Yes.
Coming off,
Sherry.
yeah, coming off Deputy Principal's comments, there are still negative connotations with women working together. How did you all overcome that if you previously found yourself in those situations during your journeys?
Can I mention?
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Karen.
Please
Yes,
do.
No,
Karen,
just
you go
quickly. When I went to be Director General for Tourism, there was nothing there. I shouldn't say that. There was another ministry, but this was going to be converted. So I literally had to find space for people to put a desk for myself and for the staff. But what I want to say is that in building the new, what became the Ministry of Tourism, I was able, through the public sector modernization program, to hire the people I wanted. And what was interesting is that although I interviewed so many men, I ended up with an office full of women. And it was one of my best working experiences ever, because they were competent and they were loving. And I mean, we had one who had a baby, and when we were working at night, the baby was there with us in the place, and we got the work done, but we did it as women are able to do, with the freedom. The only men in the office was the minister and the driver. We were all women, and I think it really created, for me, it was one of my absolutely best working experiences.
Thank you for that. I see the principal has his camera on. Do you want to chip in or?
No, I unveiled myself to smile. That's all. I didn't want, but I did see an interesting question, which I'm sure can be taken very quickly, from Cherise Glasgow, from our fine site. She says, coming off Deputy Principal's comments, there are still negative connotations with women working together. And of course, I think Karen's example debunked that. It was, but perhaps Cherise considers that a statistical outlier. That was rare, because you do hear, and Cherise, I agree with you. I tend to hear women saying that they can't work with other women. You hear that? very often. So I suppose, Chair, if your panel can reflect on this briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask if anybody else wanted to come in after Mrs. Ford Warner, just to.
Well, one thing I would say is that, yes, I have had those experiences, Charisse, in all of my zigs and zags. I certainly have. But one of the things that that you learn is that, you know, many women are socialized to think that they're in competition with each other. And we have to reflect on this. My approach to it, and it has happened to me even in my most recent role, where other women will see you as a threat to them, you know, to their particular role. And it's because we have been told that there are so few spaces for women that we have to fight over them, right? And therefore, if I come in with my bright self, I must want your job. I view those persons with a lot of compassion, and what I recommend is really to reach out to show how you will support rather than compete. Because generally it is a fear of competition, because women are made to feel, and maybe there is truth, that there are fewer seats at the table for them, and therefore they have to fight for their position. And there are also women who have had to fight tremendously and have been scarred by that fight, and are hurt people, and therefore, you know, oh, hurt people. So again, approaching it with some compassion, approaching it with a sense of, how can I help? How can you help me? You've been here before me. You know, how can you be my mentor? And that has helped me in navigating some of those experiences that I've had over the years with other women. But it is a reality, and less so. It's becoming less so, but it's still in the workplace. That is true.
Thank
I
you,
will
Dr.
add very
Longsword.
briefly. Yeah, I
Yes,
will
go
add
ahead.
very briefly. Yeah, very briefly add that I tend to, my experience has been, I've had very supportive people working with me, and seniors, especially when I was quite young, both male and female, really good senior people, bosses or supervisors. And I've also had really bad supervisors over time. And I always identify, the way I've always seen it, it is their value system. I've never made it like personal. I always see it as the people, their value system that they bring. And so I can't say that my worst experience was females or my worst experience was male, because some of the bad experiences I had were both male and female. And in all those situations, I found it had a lot to do with the person's personal values.
Mm.
And so I more or less pulled on my personal values, and in terms of working with them. And as Lou said, you help people along, or sometimes you just have to learn the lessons. So I had a very, very bad supervisor at one point, and I used that experience with him to learn what not to do when I come into positions of leadership. Yeah, because I didn't like how I felt working with the person. So I want to make sure I do differently. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So great questions, Charisse.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ford Warner, you had your hand up?
Well, I know we're running out, but I just was saying, I've been in situations with both men and women, particularly coming into a new situation in government at a high level, and you haven't spent the 40 years to get to where you're supposed to go. And so I remember the Kennedy School taking a Ron Heifetz course, and he used to talk about how not to get killed. And, you know, how do you go into an organization, new organization, when there is that animosity and opposition to you, and how you approach it? I had a situation which I dealt with. I don't even know if I should mention it, but it was a woman who had been there at the agency for a long while, and I came in, and I think she expected she would have been promoted to that position. And so she was there was a lot of animosity from her side and so forth. But I had an opportunity to go on a trip to Turkey for business, and I deliberately gave her that trip. Now, I've never been to Turkey, but she became one of my biggest allies after that. Just saying that happened. But the fact is that she also recognized that she had opportunities and that I was willing to push her forward and advance her life as well. So it wasn't that I was coming to eat her dinner, so different ways, different strokes.
You was giving to gain there.
I think I had that. Yes.
You're definitely giving to gain, Fantastic. So I think there's just a comment, I think, before we wrap up now, from Andrea. She said she had an emotional moment yesterday, reflecting on a bad experience with a woman in the workplace and on how far she has come since then. But every other woman was wonderful to her. So that's nice. And Deputy Principal's put in How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yes, very good book. Very good book, very good book. So thank you all so much. I think we've had a fantastic session, event. It's gone on a lot longer than we had originally anticipated, but that's always a good thing in terms of the conversation and discussion that we've had. So I just want to really thank the panelists for sure. I've learned a lot from your presentations as well as from the answers from your questions. And there were some great questions asked as well, and obviously some good feedback as well. So I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. I'd like to thank our presenters, obviously, Mrs. Tracy Edwards-Greaves, Mrs. Karen Ford-Warner, Dr. Loz Longsworth, and Dr. Emily Dick-Ford for your insightful and powerful presentations. And thank you for giving up your evening as well, especially to Dr. Loz Longsworth and Mrs. Karen Ford-Warner for coming back to us and gracing us with your presence. So thank you ever so much. I'd like to just say a few thank yous to our, obviously to our principal. Thank you so much for your continued support and your welcome address. I'd like to thank also Cecilia Batson-Rollock, who helped me out in the administration of tonight's event, and to my director, Mrs. Cecile Minot, for her continued support and guidance. Thank you to the marketing team and for their support and assistance. And finally, but most definitely not least, thank you to everyone who attended the session this evening and people who are watching online. Thank you so much for interacting and joining us this evening for our Give to Gain presentation. I think I'm very pleased with how it went. I'm thankful, very, very thankful for tonight's discussions. So please connect with us on IG again for all updates on things women, gender development and equality. So have a wonderful rest of evening and good night.
Bye-bye, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you much.
Bye, Luz
Thank you
and
so much.
Karen.
Bye,
Take
Good
care.
night. It's
Bye.
lovely.
Bye.
Great to see
Bye.
you all. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Bye,
It's like a mini
bye-bye.
reunion also.